We just saw the battle of the points. Yes, it was arrows versus swords, but how about old and busted versus the new hotness? It's going to be Levia, Shadowborn, Abomination, the one in the room, mind you, versus Gravy Bones, Shipwrecked Looter, of which we have several. 6 is the total representation here for Gravy. Otherwise, it's Syndra and Verdant springing up the second and third top spot. And then it's a smattering of everything. We got an Acilio in the room. We got a Fang. Heck, we got a Marlin. Unfortunately, though, no Puffin. So not 100% representation for High Seas. What do you think about this metagame here, Michael?
I mean, in direct comment to Puffin, I didn't see a great turnout for her at Nationals, and it seems like people either haven't figured her out or maybe overrated her coming out. I personally love playing Puffin and think she's a strong deck, but the way that the cards have fallen so far since this meta started does seem to indicate that maybe she doesn't quite have what it takes to take down big tournaments. So I do understand the choice not to bring her, but of course, Marlin, the new ranger in the High Seas, has a lot of people trying to build her, figure her out, and we've got Evan Bridges on that one. And then Gravy with the best showing and the best representation. I think people really just like to win games, and they base their choices a lot based on that.
With the representation of Gravy, I'm definitely looking towards that Fang in the pool, who is currently X and O. It's Patrick Rubicava, who is kind of a Fang truther along with myself. He's been working with me very closely to develop the AGE Pro Team Fang list. And if Gravy stocks are going up, Fang has a fantastic matchup into Gravy. I mean, it feels like you're playing Left 4 Dead. It's just like zombie, bang, zombie, bang.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And it does seem like the decks that have really good access to Go Again have a bit of a favored matchup into Gravy. It makes me wonder, of course, Gravy is strong, but it seems like he's targetable. So very interesting development there. We'll have to see if the prey or the predator wins out in this day. Speaking
of predator, there is one Arachne marionette lurking in the pool, and that is none other than Tao Tao Chu, who won our very last AGE Open. That's right, the month of May was taken down by this shadowy figure. He did, however, suffer a round 1 loss from Paul Selinsky, who we saw on stream just last round.
Yeah, it seems like things went really, really well for him early on and then just didn't quite fall the way he wanted for round 2, of course. Hoping for better luck as he goes into Marlin, the AGE villain, Evan Bridges. And we're allowed to root against him, right?
Yeah. He's the only one we're allowed to root against. We also have a couple other AGE events on the horizon, folks. The AGE in New England is popping off on June 28th. That's going to be at a new venue. Grave Troll Games in Nashua, New Hampshire is a brand new Flesh and Blood store. Store owner Katie is very ambitiously going for a no Magic the Gathering business model. And so we are privileged to help support that dream because we would love to make it happen and make more safe places for Flesh and Blood. Furthermore, we've got 2 LA Opens scheduled at the ready that we're here to announce. It's July 13th at Top Deck Keep once again, and of course August 9th here at Top Deck Keep. We love this place, and we don't want to go anywhere. There will be more dates for AGE New England coming up, possibly back at Great Stories, coming at you real soon. We will let you know as soon as we can lock those in. But bottom line, there is an AGE Open on either coast every single month as promised, and it all leads up to that Players' Championship, which will be coming at you September and October.
I do have a question for you about these AGE Easts. I know we haven't been covering them recently, but is there any coverage coming up on them?
The next one we will be covering, thank you so much for mentioning that, Michael, the one on June 28th at Grave Troll Games will indeed be streamed by myself and also Patrick Greasy at the casting desk. And we will give you some bi-coastal bloodshed. And be there and don't be square. Watch it on AGE YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and get down to the feature match area, however, because we've gotten word that our players are ready and they are itching to spawn allies and also murder them if you're on the other side of the table. So, producer Justin, arrange those sock puppets however you need to, and let's proceed on down to the feature match area. Swell the music, folks. These are some dark arts dabblers if I've ever seen them. Look at Levia getting all crazy with her mouth suit, I guess is what I'm going to call that. And then Gravy Bones, of course, being a dead pirate himself.
The zombies versus the skeletons. What a cool thematic matchup we have on our hands.
Demons, I would say?
Demons, thank you. The demons versus the zombies, I guess. These are zombies.
Yeah. Gravy's got the zombies.
Yeah.
Levia is a demon, right?
Yeah.
I'd buy that. Okay, so looks like Clark Moore is starting off here. Peter posturing like he doesn't actually have an affirmative action to make here. What do you think about this equipment suite here, Michael?
Well, I'm starting off on the Gravy side. It looks pretty stock standard going down to Levia. We have, again, pretty stock standard, but we actually haven't seen a lot of this stuff. And what's that in the headpiece there?
That's the Spoiled Skull. That was the headpiece, the Majestic that came out of Dusk Till Dawn. That is going to allow Clark to have a very big turn later on once he kind of has his graveyard filled. It's going to put 3 cards in, I think it's he chooses 3 cards in Banish, he rolls a die, and then he can play one of them until the end of turn. So you try to get like a Blood Rush Bellow in your Banish zone and have a 4th Blood Rush Bellow turn
Spoiled
later
Skull,
on in the game.
obviously very powerful, but it is competing for a really, really tough spot there. The Legendary Brute Helmet.
You're cueing me. Come on, Michael, you got this one.
You're going to make me wait here
Scowling
for 5 minutes.
Fleshbag is the name of that card, which of course intimidates your opponent on defense. And yeah, you're right. That is one of the most powerful cards Brute has access to, and it's an interesting choice to leave it at home. I tend to think that Clark is making this choice kind of similarly to the Dromai matchup for Levia earlier on. I tended to like Spoiled Skull in that matchup when I was playing Levia as well, namely so that you can kind of fatigue your opponent out, kill allies, kill allies, kill allies, until the moment where you want to go for the throat. And then you can banish, say, like a Blood Rush Bellows, and then a couple other power cards that are in your banish zone.
So it's all about that offensive spike with the Spoiled Skull.
A little bit. It just makes you want to go the distance because a lot of the time during this game, you're going to be taking a pause and killing dudes. Clark also, it is important to mention, has a very awesome podcast called the Pitch It To Me podcast. He is one of the 3 hosts on that one. The other 2, of course, are Joel Racinos and Fuzzy Delp, both mainstays here at Arcane Games and Events. Golden Tipple is the first attack resolved on this combat chain, but it looks like there's already a judge call here. Peter pitching a very sharpied up proxy of Eye of Ophidia here. We're trying to decide whether or not the opt happens first or the draw.
And I believe the player gets to choose the triggers when they happen simultaneously. It looks like Peter doing the opt first.
Okay, and we resolve here. Chum goes into the bin, a gold token created, and a card drawn for Peter Buddensiek. In case you're thinking you're seeing a familiar face, you were right. Peter Buddensiek was in our finals just last month against Tao Tao Chu. Things did not go his way because he was on Arachne, slipped through the cracks, and essentially donated a hero power over to Tao Tao's Arachne Marionette.
Yeah, that could be a very rough matchup.
So it's 2 boys in the bin for Peter Buddensiek. Chum, Friendly First Mate, and Rigor Mortis. This Golden Tipple still has yet to complete resolving. Clark might be in the tank about these blocks here. Life totals are no longer in the favor of the Shadowborn Abomination. It's 39, plays 37 in the favor of Peter.
We see the Enlightened Strike in hand. A decent follow-up, but it doesn't establish any of the allies in that Watery Grave. Still, I think no blue played this turn as well, so that is not on. Bit of an underwhelming turn.
Peter, however, does seem to be utilizing those red attacks. He's got an Enlightened Strike in hand. Goes ahead and pops that gold generated by the Golden Tipple immediately to see if he can fix this hand up a little bit. He does find a blue that he can resolve, but no. Just says it's time to resolve this E-Strike, probably for buff power 7, and pocket that Avast for a later turn.
Yeah, things starting out a little bit slower than our first Gravy game on stream, which is how I typically see these Gravies playing. A little bit of a slow roll in the beginning to set things up rather than the absolute offensive blender that we saw earlier.
Clark blocking with 2 cards there, trying to do a little bit of graveyard fill. He has hit the faded 3 cards in the grave. He's got an Eye of Ophidia his own. This one not proxied. Kind of a flex on Peter Buddensiek there, but Clark has a really nice follow-up. It's Shadow Realm Horror, which is going to banish 3 cards Out of the bin of Clark Moore, he happens to only have 3, and all of them are 6s, which means that this not only gets +1 and go again, but also Clark can play one of those banished cards later on this turn. A screamer of a turn coming out of Clark Moore.
Yeah, 7 go again. These are the types of cards that are super nice to have, super flexible, because they allow you to go wider, but they also allow killing of those really high breakpoint allies. You can see the Chum in the graveyard right now. If that was out on the board, it wouldn't surprise me at all if this 7 was going straight at him.
And 7 must go at Peter because he has not resolved a single ally as of yet. And this is exactly what Clark wants to do. Pressure that life total early, and that way he has the space to remove allies when he needs to. Usually, Clark is going to want to wait until he has discarded a card with 6 or more on his turn so that he can remove allies with those claws. The attacks from Levia, just like we saw with Aggro Riptide in round 1, are just too big to be donated to, say, like a Rigor Mortis or an Oyston.
And seeing the block from that Conqueror of the High Seas is a big deal. Getting that off of the offensive combat chain and into the bin with just 3 value. Big win for Clark.
And after that Graveling Growl was resolved from the banish zone after being put into the graveyard, Clark just sent a 3-card 13, which is not a slouch at all. For Peter, it's Avasti into Rigor Mortis, swing Rigor Mortis, pitching a yellow, another Chum, which means that this is 6 go again, create a gold token on hit. Clark takes that 6 almost immediately. Peter generates that gold token and evens up these life totals. 29 plays 30 as the second E-strike of Peter's day is coming at Clark. 5, draw a card on this.
Yeah, another efficient turn here, but not extremely offensively slanted. 6 into 5, 11 damage presented for the turn. And it looks like Clark has a really good hand that he wants to keep all 5 cards of, which could be scary as with the clapback.
I think that might have been the first Blood Rush Bellows for Clark in the hand, if my eyes don't see me. Yes, indeed, there it is. He's also got a blue, and I would have to imagine 2. Yeah, he's very blue-flooded, but they're all blue 6s, which is fantastic, except for the Call to the Grave, which is going right into the pitch zone. So Clark is going to have the green light to do his worst on this turn.
Yeah, guaranteed discarding that 6. That's exactly where you want to be, especially with the 2 resources floating.
Man, it is fun to see Levia today.
Yeah, I haven't seen her in a long time.
Deadwood Rumbler going to the graveyard, which means that Blood Rush Bellow is going to be resolved for the full extent of its effect. Clark goes ahead and draws 2 cards. I believe it's a yellow Graveling Growl and a blue Dread Screamer. So not the high-powered attack that Clark is really looking for on this turn, but you're still going to be able to send Claw. So starting off with 10 and then following up with something, which is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, being resource-rich on the Blood Rush is usually a pretty good thing.
That being said, he is not going to be able to efficiently remove that Rigor Mortis, so I tend to think that all of these attacks are going to go Peter's face to maximize the value on that Blood Rush Bellow. So Rigor Mortis will fight another day, and Clark will have to deal with it on that same other day. Oh, but there was a pulping in the arsenal, Michael, which means that this is coming in for 8. And we'll see if Clark is able to discard that 6 right here. The card drawn is not going to be shown to us. Let's see if he makes the hit. I tend to think that Clark made this play because he had 2 other 6s in hand. But no, if it was no, he pitched the blue Dread Screamer. So we're all good here except for that last card, which we weren't able to catch. Peter rolls a 3. It's the middle one. It's a Wrecker Romp, which means that this pulping has Dominate.
If Peter didn't arsenal a D-Reactor, which I don't think he did, there's not much he can do here to turn that go again off. Of course, it does need to connect in order for that to take effect.
8 go again, Dominate right now. Peter fishing a little bit, cracking one of his 2 gold tokens to draw a card and then discard a card. I think that was a defense reaction that he just drew. That might have been Blood in the Water. He's definitely going to get rid... Never mind. My eyes do deceive me. He is going to get rid of one of these non-blocking allies, but he's got 2 more in the hand, which means that Clark is going to get a lot of damage in right here.
Yeah, Peter's taking a huge hit from this Blood Rush Bellow.
And this is the difference between this Gravy Bones matchup and the Aggro Riptide that we saw round 1. There just wasn't enough pressure coming out of Riptide to pressure the Gravy Bones away from just playing to the board, right? Which can be a very efficient thing to do, but only if the game goes long enough. In this case, Clark says, I'm going to close this out before you can get value on these allies. Oh, and Clark proving me wrong immediately as he swings a Mandible Claw into that Rigor Mortis.
Yeah, and I don't think that's wrong. It is a little bit sad to be giving 5 points of damage into 1 point of health. That being said, the game plan of keeping the board clear can make it really difficult for Gravy Bones to have any kind of meaningful return fire. Now you have to build up again.
Now, that was a big turn. Clark did a lot of things, but the one thing he didn't do was banish a 6 from his graveyard, which means that he did take 1 to Blood Debt, the first thus far. And if there's one thing Levia can do, it's take a lot of damage to Blood Debt. So he will have to keep an eye on that as this game progresses. Golden Tipple in the blue this time. The first action resolve for Peter Buddensiek.
Take 1, 23.
He's discarded a Rigor Mortis, which means that yet another gold token is generated and a card drawn. Peter follows up with a Saltwater Swell, finds that blue Avasci on the top, which means that he has 3 floating and 3 go again on the combat chain.
That's a good card, Saltwater Swell, the attack action that costs less than 0 sometimes.
Dead Thread's active.
In this case, costing -2.
Pretty strong.
3 go again here. Clark really thinking about whether or not to block with these cards. It's a very different posture than we saw the last turn when he had the Blood Rush Bellows in hand. He pretty much said ship the damage immediately when Peter presented it.
Now looking at a way to play this 5-card hand efficiently, and that is one of the things I think that Levia can struggle to do is consistently convert 5-card hands. You do usually need to block here and there just to make sure that you're using every point of value that you can.
In this hand, the action points are kind of deficient. So Clark is going to have to convert some of the defensive value of his cards rather than the offensive value. He does have Call to the Grave, which is like Levia and Gravy Bones are pretty much the only 2 heroes that use that card in this game, and Levia has been doing it for much longer than Gravy at this point, although not to as good of effect. Sawbones resolved here out of the graveyard.
Just kidding.
Because, no, Peter has put a blue golden tipple in the graveyard.
Yeah,
Peter's just thinking about sequencing here.
Yep. Sawbones, another one of those super powerful allies.
Peter is our resident trash talker, famous for losing on stream after he totally tries to verbally body his opponent's hero.
I didn't catch any trash talk before this.
I didn't either. Maybe that means he's going to win one on stream. He's activated Mage Master Boots, activated Dead Threads to get a resource floating. And he's sporting the red Swiftwater Sloops. Usually kind of a mainstay in Limited in this high seas format. In this case, Peter says 6 go again is good enough to run in a CC deck.
I think that card makes a lot of sense when you're trying to shore up your aggressive matchup. We saw the aggressive pressure that was put on by Charles Dunn using these red go again cards, and this is just another flavor of that. So I do like the card. Of course, in this case, being pitched for 1, not ideal, but it's there to use when needed.
For now, it is just 6, courtesy of Sawbones. Clark blocks with Scabskin Leathers and Savage Feast in order to shore up the majority of that damage. Clark says, respond with Dread Screamer in the blue to immediately remove that Sawbones. I think that's really heads up. Sawbones is an kill on sight kind of ally.
Absolutely. I'm curious to see if Peter will go ahead and use that instant ability before it dies.
It would basically just be for posture at that point because
Sometimes I've seen players like to use it just to continue to fill the graveyard, even if it doesn't come in for value.
you do not discard a Watery Grave card
Is
on
that not?
Sawbones' ability.
Excuse me.
Nope,
I was
you
thinking
just
of
tap
Monk.
him.
Go again, killing Sawbones. Yeah, sure.
Bye-bye. Peter deciding not to tap out of spite. And it's a yellow Graveling Growl once again. This time seems to be going at Peter's face here.
Makes sense, but this is the kind of breathing room that Gravy can generate by putting out lots of allies at once, and we saw that Mage Master Boots used to great effect as now he gets to start his turn with a Rigor Mortis, which is a really nice proposition of 1 resource for 6 damage.
And Peter's got himself a fantastic Majestic and Give No Quarter. I do believe he's got 2 allies in the bin that cost 3 or greater as well, so he might be able to essentially pitch that card by playing it for 6, which could be the double ally turn that he really needs to turn this tide. That being said, Mage Master Boots have already been utilized here, and Clark still sitting at 4 life surplus to Peter's 18, and still 6 damage on the combat chain.
Yeah, 6 asks a meaningful question of a third of Peter's active life total right now.
Peter, really thinking about this block. This could be the one that has the game hanging in the balance. He's lining up 2 cards right now, a Murderous Rabble and Tip the Barkeep. All of that damage going to the blocks.
No damage.
Yeah, the Give Nor Quarter is such a good draw right now, as with only 2 cards in hand, he's still going to establish a very meaningful board and be able to present some more damage on the back end.
First, however, we have a Gravy Bones activation. Down to 1 gold is Peter Buddensiek. He draws up a Tip the Barkeep, discards that Oyston out of the hand, which makes me think that, yes, it's going to be a Give No Quarter resolved here, which means that Peter essentially has 9 resources with which to put together this turn. I think he would have loved to have the Mage Master Boots still at his disposal here.
Yeah, I think Gravy would like Mage Master every turn of the game if they could have it.
And no, it's not a Give No Quarter turn right here. It's a Tip the Barkeep instead. Generate a Gold Kiss Rum and swing Rigor Mortis.
I like this
Dead
too.
Threads.
Saving that Give No Quarter for a more explosive turn with the action points now on the board in the form of that rum.
And Peter diligently not activating his gold-baited hook here because there's a lot of cards in the Levia deck that block for 3, and usually she is very happy to play that value game of block 2 cards, send 2 cards. I'm thinking of a little guy now named Endless Maw, who is a 2-card 9 that plays into that Levia game plan. But right now, Peter indicating to Clark that nothing else is going to come his way this turn because this Rigor Mortis simply doesn't have go again.
Still a pretty efficient turn. 2 card 6. Actually, no, 1 card 6 because he gets to arsenal that last card. Yes, extremely efficient turn. Not to mention the establishment of another ally on the board.
Clark Moore still in the tank here. This is round 3 of, I believe, 5. I think that number at the bottom right of your screen is an error. We've got 27 players here, which should mean 5 rounds of Swiss before our top 8 cut, which means that there is a lot on the line here already at round 3.
Yeah, we're having some losing outs happen already, I think.
Clark lines up 1 card, and it's a big one. It's swing big. One that Clark would definitely rather be utilizing on offense if he can. Life totals are now 18, plays 19, barely in the favor of Clark Moore, but there is a lot more blocking equipment on his side of things. There's still a Carrion Husk with which to use, 2 blocks on Apex Bonebreaker, and also 1 more left on the Scabskin Leathers. Right now, it's just Boneyard Marauder.
I don't like that very much.
It's less than ideal, but Clark seems to have been caught red-handed here. He blocked with a swing big, he pitched a swing big, and played a Boneyard Marauder.
Yeah, it's definitely the right out for his hand texture, but compared to Peter's 1 card 6, a 3 card 9 is not ideal.
Blood Debt has been turned off, so no 2 damage taken for Clark Moore at the end of this turn. This could be a pivot point for Peter.
That's how it's feeling to me as well. Getting to keep that 5 card hand with a Give No Quarter in arsenal. Maybe even not needing to keep the 5 card hand because he can do what he wants with just 3.
Peter decides to keep 1 blue and a Swiftwater Sloop. Makes me wonder if that card on top of the deck is a blue. So he's going to draw here, float 1. If it's a blue, then you better believe he'll be slooping in just a moment.
Good use, I think, of the gold here, knowing that he won't use it for the Gravy Bones this turn. He needs that for the Gold Kiss Rum if he wants to go extra wide.
First, it's a Give No Quarter, the one that was put there in Arsenal last turn. That plus the 1 floating from the Golden Tipple equals a Chum friendly first mate.
Popping a gold?
Yeah, I popped a gold and played a quarter.
I was just...
And that might be the last ally that was left for Peter, so that Give No Quarter not giving as much value that it normally can. Gold Kiss Rum activated here. Gravy Bones is now drunk, but just until the end of the turn. And in this game, being drunk pays dividends because it means that this chum will be 4 go again.
You gotta do some math here.
And now Clark doing math, as he says before you, because he's got a Carrion Husk to consider here. If he starts his turn with 13 or less life, that all-powerful 6-block equipment piece will just go straight to the Banished Zone.
This is also such an efficient turn from Peter. I think he had a 3-card hand if you count the Arsenal. And I'm looking at 4 into 6 into 6 right now if he plays that Swiftwater Sloop and then ends with the Rigor Mortis, which would be a 3-card 16, putting Levia to shame.
Clark going to see what he can do with this hand. He's got to make a power play here because Peter is coming out swinging. He doesn't even know about that red boat that lurks in Peter's hand.
Yeah, and Peter, having blocked out quite efficiently thus far in the game, still sitting at 18, not quite in lethal range, makes it such a tough decision to decide to keep a 5-card hand, because even if you convert it all, you run the risk of Peter utilizing that life total as a resource and then coming back with another huge attack.
Alrighty then.
Clark really in the tank here, doing a lot of math, but it could all go out the window once that sloop hits the arena.
If Clark decides no block for all these, he could go down to 3 right now.
Certainly can't do that. He's going to have to find... I think Clark is identifying that this is the moment where he needs to find a block point for his Carrion Husk.
He sees the Rigor Mortis on the table. I think that it's smart enough that you could assume that's coming your way and you could get the full value, and he does decide no blocks.
Clark has taken 4 here, and Swiftwater Sloop is the follow-up. 6 go again here, and Clark very happy that he held back that Carrion Husk because it comes out to play right on top of that red boat. Rigor Mortis, the follow-up. 4 into 6 into 6.
Man, Peter's got a big fat board to deal with.
So I got 18-9.
Clark says, I'm taking all of this all the way down to 9, so he has saved his Carrion Husk, luckily. But this means that he is no longer going to be able to transform into Blasmafet. So probably we're not going to see a demi-hero hit the board for Levia this game. Clark has got to have a big turn here.
Claw Rigor Mortis. In response, Agile Windup.
Okay,
like
this
that.
is a good start. Sometimes a big turn can mean clearing a lot of zombies.
Yeah, getting control of the board state here is really, really important.
3 go again.
Clark clawing the face here. 3 go again, thanks to the discard of that Agile Windup.
No blocks.
The follow-up, I tend to think, is going after Chum.
Mark of the Beast, kill Chum.
Yep.
And this is a fantastic play here, too, because Mark of the Beast will go to the Banished Zone instead of the Graveyard, because that's what's written on the card, and it will also turn off Blood Debt, thanks to the fact that it is a 6-power attack.
And there's a really important detail showing on the board right now. Peter Buddensiek has 0 cards in his Watery Grave at the moment. That may change right now, but certainly means that he needs to start filling that back up ASAP if he wants to keep the value engine going.
Perhaps exactly the reprieve that Clark needs right now, because that could mean 2 setup turns versus 1 for Peter. Clark just needs space, because Levia can dish out the numbers. There's no question about that. Oh, but that's a good ally to hit in the graveyard, Peter. It is Limpet, hop along. He's going to have to get a blue card into the graveyard if he wants to play it, though.
Revealing an ally off the top, if he had some way to get it from the top into the graveyard, that would be extremely helpful. One of the upsides of Saltwater, even if you don't hit that blue, you still get to see that it's an ally.
Clark seeming to take a reckless amount of damage here. He is down to 6 now after that Saltwater Swell. Peter's going to follow it up once again. There's still a yellow on top, so no extra pitch generated there. It remains to be seen how much Peter needed that. Clark says, I'm going to block with that Apex Bonebreaker. I don't even want the extra Might token value. I'm going to keep all of these hands with an Agility token and see if I can put you back into your grave, Gravy Bones.
And here's that helmet that we spoke about at the beginning of the game coming in. I'm very curious to see how Clark Moore utilizes this.
Blood Rush Bellow being chosen here makes a lot of sense. I love the Savage Feast here because an agility token has popped at the beginning of this turn. Peter just reminding himself of the text on this card. It's probably been a long time since he's seen it. Clark is choosing 3 cards in his Banish Zone with different names. Randomly, he will be able to choose 1 to be able to play this turn. You know he's hoping for that Blood Rush Bellows.
Yeah, the Graveling Growl, a clear miss compared to the other 2.
Depends on whether or not his hand will banish another 6 this turn.
Maybe miss was too strong of a word, but there's a preference here that I see.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3.
Roll the dice, says Clark Moore. What will it be, Peter? It's a 5. The right card is chosen. It is Graveling Growl. Clark, shrugging a little bit, indicating that that was the least likely choice for him.
Yeah.
5 technically, with this guy being playable until end of turn.
So
Still-
Graveling Growl is playable this turn, but it cannot be played unless a card with 6 or more has been put into his Banish Zone this turn.
Yeah, if he can fulfill that requirement, still strong, 1 for 6.
Oh, and you can tell why he really wanted the Savage Feast or the Blood Rush Bellow. He has a Beast Within in hand. The high roll potentials were there.
He still has a chance to hit it as he plays this Dread Screamer. Oh, I'm sorry, this doesn't. Never mind.
Dread Screamer is just going to banish 3 cards from the grave. He needs to hit a 6 here, which will give Dread Screamer double go again, thanks to the agility token and the text on Dread Screamer, but it will also unlock that Graveling Growl. But you see right here, Clark is just a little bit tilted by the miss there. He had 2 out of 3 shot to get exactly what he wanted and just couldn't get there with the die roll. This is the challenge with Brute.
Yeah, and that Dread Screamer eating up the agility can't feel good as well.
He has banished a plethora of 6s, so double go again is unlocked, although it is not particularly useful. Peter has drawn himself up a Blood in the Water now, so he's got a good amount of defense reactions with which to use. He is going to discard the ally alongside, which means a 1-card 6 block is nothing to shake your hat at. Red Dread Screamer is the follow-up for Clark after pitching a yellow. Going to see if he can get true go again here. He's already moved it over, which makes me think that he can't miss in this graveyard. We'll see, though.
Bro, this would have been such a good Blood Rush Bellow turn.
Can I read the Demi Hero?
Yes, I need to have 13 blood debt for it to be relevant.
Currently at 7 blood debt, 13 required to turn on the Demi Hero for those who couldn't hear the lower volume.
Yeah, I need this one.
Yep, Levia Redeemed is being taken a look at by Peter Buddensiek because that's the only side of that card that is still relevant here. Clark will need 13 Blood Debt cards in his Banish Zone in order to activate it. At action speed, he can become Levia Redeemed and essentially go back up to 8 life and also turn off Blood Debt for the rest of the game.
Going back up to 9, so getting close. 4
He's close.
short.
6 go again here from the second Dread Screamer this turn. Clark lamenting that this would have been a great Blood Rush turn. We can't
Sure
deny
would.
him that. But you got to hit that 1 out of 3 die roll. With great power comes a lot of drawbacks in this game.
Oh, yeah.
Peter blocks with the gold-baited hook and takes 5 down to 10. Clark forced to pitch that swing big in hand. Resource deficient here to play that Graveling Growl thanks to the spoiled skull. So this is still a massive turn. This is still 18 damage, but it is not enough to threaten Peter's life.
Yeah, and Peter with that D-React in hand, blocking 6, putting another very meaningful card into his Watery Grave. The Limpet Hop-Alongs, 2 sitting in there means that Clark is going to face down the Gravy Bones Kadachi lock pretty soon here.
I am really curious as to why Clark didn't deploy the swing big as his first attack this turn, because he had the agility token.
True.
This turn could have been worth 2 more points of value.
Interesting.
Maybe
Maybe
he
the
was
tilt.
maybe he was really concerned about hitting a 6 on the banish and being able to use his Graveling Growl.
Could be.
It's a curious thing. I think there's a potential that we miss 2 points of offensive value here.
Yeah,
Even
there's-
so, it wouldn't be threatening the life total of Peter Buddensiek.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Sitting at 10 instead of 8 right here, not the most meaningful difference.
It's also true that he's just trying to accelerate to 13 blood debt and get to that Demi Hero flip at this point, trying to make the best out of a bad situation.
Peter is in the tank, though. Not sure if he's just thinking about staying efficient or if there's some concern on his end.
There's a Conqueror of the High Seas in the arsenal. Sea Legs in hand. Looks like a Murderous Rabble there, too.
So, bit of a clunker. If the Murderous Rabble comes out, he will enable the Limpets to come out as well. So, I think he's fine going down to 4.
Yeah, I like this because he's going to be able to go Murderous Rabble, probably 3 go again into Limpet, swing 2, 3 off of the Oyston.
Oh.
Nope, says 7 is good enough here. Conqueror of the High Seas is out on the arena. Clark doesn't have an arsenal, but he only has 2 life points here. Oh, and Clark forced to block with the Blood Rush that he found. Off the draw there, gives a wry laugh because that is not the way he wanted it to shake out. This is a normal game for Levia players, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Win by the die by the die. That's a lot of die.
Pulping.
Okay, it's a pulping.
Oh!
Discards his last Blood Rush. And the salt continues to flow here in the mines of Top Deck Keep. Currently 7 go again here on offer from the pulping. No dominate, though.
Yeah, I was going to say that could have been lethal. It couldn't because of the dead thread still on the board. But
And it is lethal for Clark, though,
Yeah.
because that Blood Debt takes him down. Has not been able to banish a card with 6 or more that turn, which means that it goes the way of the gravy. The Shipwrecked Looter ascends once again in this, the June AGE Open in LA.
I got to say, though, if it didn't whiff that hard at the end, that Levia was in a really good spot. I think it just came down to that stumble at the end there, the RNG of the die not coming up the way of Levia, which is unfortunate, but it's also the, as you said, with great power comes great risk in the form of rolling die to rely on your power turns.
The Brute Life is a hard one for sure if you've ever lived it, but it's also really exhilarating.
It is.
So you have to give way to the fun if you're going to get the most out of that hero.
Absolutely. We were both just in Vegas, and we know how exhilarating it can be to sit down and roll die and hope for the W. And, doesn't always come up. For me, it didn't even come close when I was in Vegas. And a little closer for Clark, but not quite, as he stumbles just before the finish line.
Unfortunately, I left you and sock puppet producer Justin stranded at the craps table because I am a risk-averse person.
I am too.
The only time I will ever take it is when I'm sitting down and playing cards.
He peer pressured me very hard to play with him, and I did cave. And my God, I don't think I've lost $100 faster than those 3 minutes at the craps table.
How about the last time you played an AGE Open?
Oh, yeah, actually that might have been faster.
No, I'm just kidding. You did really well at the last one.
Yeah, it was a draft.
Yeah, it was the Hunted Draft.
The
and
CC events I've played in the long past did not go well.
Well, one of these days we will unchain you from the casting desk and allow you to play in another one of these, Michael.
Yeah, let
Maybe
me
you
get
can
that
take me with
Puffin
you.
deck put together. Yeah, we should have, we'll just swap with we'll have 2 people play on camera, then we'll go play on camera and they can cast.
Okay, that sounds fun. Little Freaky Friday
Oh,
action.
yeah.
Which one of us is Lindsay Lohan and who is Jamie Lee Curtis?
I call Lindsay Lohan.
All right, I'm cool with that.
But that means we're going to swap.
Oh, so then
I
wait
have
a minute.
the mind of Lindsay Lohan and the body of Jamie Lee, right?
Oh, so
Is
things came out great for me. I've got the mind
I
of
just
Jamie Lee
wanna-
Curtis and the body of Lindsay Lohan. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Yep.
This is a fair trade. I accept.
Yep. I just want to know what she thinks,
That seems reasonable. Do you think mayonnaise is her favorite condiment?
I sure hope so. We'll find out.
Well, we'll find out that and so much more when we come back at AGE. Don't go anywhere. Hey, I just ventured into the salt mines and pulled out a Peter. How you doing, bud?
Dude, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I can't complain. That was a pretty intense match that we just saw right there, and mainly it seemed to come down to a die roll.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting playing the mid game. He had a very good early pressure, and then I kind of responded with pressure in the mid game, and then was able to develop with my pressure. And he kind of had had the good start, and then the mid game I feel like there was some of those stacks should have been at my allies instead of me, and it allowed me to usually with CC gravy I compassing on my own turn, and my opponent allowed me basically to compass on his turn to know if I can block 6 on this and then still be able to send go again plus develop an ally. And in every situation to where attacking 6 at me, and I can develop allies and keep other allies in the same time. I just kind of snowball effect, and my opponent has to kill me if he's going to take that line, or he needs to start clearing like basically instantly, and it snowballed out of control basically.
So we've seen 2 Gravy games on stream today, but they were very different in certain respects. So earlier on, we saw Charles Dunn going at it with an aggro Riptide, and he did so very handsomely with like good blocks here, good damage there, had a Limpet and a Rigor Mortis, kind of used it as an Anothos, for lack of a better term. But he was incredibly deficient on gold. You, Peter, in this last match, showed us how powerful Gravy can be and how many more options are open to him when the gold engine gets going.
Yeah, he's incredibly powerful when you have the gold engine going. And it's funny because like the gold engine is very good about itself, but it also makes you snowball gold later down the line as well. Like Golden Tipple, for example, like gets to go one for 3 with Go again. If you discard the yellow card, it makes the gold, and then you draw a card. But you can also hook on that turn because you've already made the gold. So not only do you make the first gold, then your opponent has to respect to make the second gold of that turn. And if they can either respect it and you're still left with 1 gold, or if they disrespect it, you have 2 gold. And now you get to draw multiple cards off the gold, or you can use your leader ability multiple times. Like, it just like the gold is so important in the deck, and it's the reason why you had to play Crown of Dominion, because the first gold matters so much. And the second that you can be flexible with your gameplay with the gold, it's incredible.
Absolutely. And one of the things we keep talking about is the skill gap between Gravy players that know which allies to bring into a matchup and which ones kind of are haphazard about it. So what were your choices here going up against your opponent? Yeah,
so like I always play like the main like 3 Rigor Mortis, 3 Limpet, 3 Sawbones, and like the 1 Oisian, and the 3 Chums in my list. Like every single matchup I play all of them. Besides like sometimes the ninja matchups I don't play Limpid because it's like not that really impactful and it dies really easily. But that's usually all the allies I'm bringing in like every single matchup. I brought Swabbies and Whalers in for this matchup. It's like a kind of a mid-range matchup to where he presents a lot of damage, but he lacks go again consistently.
Right.
And he can take 1 or 2 avenues. And he can be... There's basically 3 avenues they can always take versus Gravy. Is like Jacob Shaker. I forgot his last name. The guy...
Jacob Shaker.
Jacob Shaker. Yeah. I was like, is it Shaker? Is it not? I was like, I really didn't want to say it wrong. But he had a really great postmortem that he wrote on, and then he posted on Twitter and Blue Sky. There's like 3 different ways that they can really react to Gravy, and it's heavy clearing. Like I'm gonna clear every single ally on site. I'm going to clear your ally and send an attack at you, like kind of mid-range it. I'm only going to attack the really good allies and kind of ignore the bad ones.
Or
like,
when it makes sense. Yeah.
And then the third one is I'm going to ignore allies and go face. So my opponent fell into the second category to where he killed allies when it was pretty important for him to do it. It was pretty easy for him to do it and it made sense, and then it's standing there. But then halfway through the game, he realized I need to go face here, and he switched from 2 to 3 and allowed me to just get independent value out of like the allies on the field, which is just like kind of incredible. I never had time basically to set up a Whaler. I could probably play a Swabby this game, but I didn't have enough time to set up a Whaler because of how he was playing the matchup, right? If he was, I don't know which one of the 3 he's doing, so I had to plan for kind of all 3 at once. The first one is really good if I have Whaler in my deck, because eventually, give no quarter into a Whaler is like super, super powerful, and it takes so many resources for him to kill it, because most of his things are 6 and it's 7, which is super impactful. So it's really good against the 1, but Swabby's way better against the 2 and the 3 than there. So I brought both of them in depending on there. I brought like 3 D-Reacts because depending on as well. Just kind of had a 63 card pile to where like whatever he picked, I had the toolbox basically to be able to do it.
There was a very poignant conversation going on between the 2 of you. I agree that he came out with a lot of really intense early pressure, which I highlighted on stream because it's like, yes, this is exactly what you want to do against Gravy, because they can't just sit back on a board and swing out turn after turn. They have to start doing something active to respond to you. Then, however, there was a situation where he took the time to remove some allies, and you came back swinging with Chum for go again, and then a swing out of the entire board. So you almost forced his hand in kind after the the Chum, Sloop, Rigor Mortis turn.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Levia and for Brutes at large, when you want to pivot from that game plan 2 to game plan 3, sometimes you have to do it off the back of a die roll. So after he resolved Spoiled Skull, and he showed you which cards that he was going for, how important did that die roll seem to you?
It seems like decently impactful. I thought the one he hit was the worst one, obviously, out of the 3. And I think that one basically made it to where I was pretty favored if he hits this one. There's one of the options to where I think the game was like pretty even to like maybe
Savage
I was
Feast.
Yeah, Savage. If you hit Savage Feast, the game's like kind of even. Like both players can win at that point. If it's Blood Rush Bellow, I think I was like unfavored at that point. Depending on like the 2 cards that he draws. Like if he hits resources, like it could be almost over on that turn, basically. But basically one of the 3, it was kind of weird. It was like either it was really, really good for him or it was really, really bad for him. And then there was kind of a middle option. And then it hit the bad one and it was fine, you know? I think I still had like a good option. Even if he hit the Blood Rush Bellow, I still think I had a good chance of winning the game with the allies on board. But it would have mattered like how much block I was getting per turn, you know, D-reacts, et cetera, et cetera.
And that is a tough proposition when you have so many non-blocks in a deck like Gravy Bones.
I was really confused when I first saw that the allies. I assumed it was like Dromite, right? That there was like the 3 block and then it had the backside.
Right.
And when they confirmed that they just don't block, I was like, what are we doing to like warrant this? Yeah, and then fast forward, like I'm like, oh yeah, dude, these things blocked. Oh my god.
Well, it's important to mention because then there wouldn't be a mini game of like getting them into the graveyard, right? You would literally just block with them and then play them the next turn, which would be out of control.
I think the only way was just like if you blocked with them, they would go to upside down, and like you couldn't play them. But it was just like, the hoops that you have to go through with Gravy are so intentional, and he's still very good.
He is. And so one of the other contentious things about building a Gravy Bones deck is the number of reds. I talked to Charles Dunn about this. He's on 6. Austin Summers, my teammate, is also on 6. And the main reason for that is they both hate missing on Chart the High Seas. You seem to not care nearly as much because we've got E-Strikes, we've got Saltwater Swells, we've got Saltwater Sloops. Talk to me about your approach there.
Yeah, so Yuki, one of the greatest deck builders in the game, I basically took this list, and like some of the Canadians were also working on it as well. And I basically took this list from her and played literal 0 games before the battle hardened. And I asked what the game plan basically was, and she was highlighting in the article that's on LSS that she did, the 0 to 80 for Gravy Bones and stuff like that. Incredible read if you want to learn a lot, like a high-class Gravy to start. And she really highlighted that the go again attacks before are very, very important, and to act kind of like the allies are your finisher. So there's a lot of different ways to build Gravy, but this one specifically that I'm playing is playing more reds to be able to always maximize on the go again at the beginning and always hit, head jab 1 for 3, 1 for 3, making more gold, putting an extra blue on, like putting an extra blue off swell, and then hitting with the Conqueror into an ally to finish it off. Other Gravy decks are trying to be more defensive or trying to go more go-again centric to playing multiple allies or heavier towards the ally centric. I'm using just the allies for my finisher. And like obviously I can still do the Mage Master thing, play both allies, my opponent has to attack one of them, but I'm trying to utilize the attack and defense of my allies to the maximum effect. And the second that they take a turn off, I can always capitalize on that turn. I think the other versions sometimes can't capitalize on the turn, depending. But the more reds you put in the deck, it's more variants of like you can't hit off chart, you can't there. But I didn't when I was playing the Battle Harden, I didn't even have chart on my list.
Yeah,
like I just recently added it, and still it's like you have a fail case, but the reds are so impactful.
It also perhaps gives you extra equity into the mirror because you have so many head jab effects that are really good at removing a lot of these allies.
Yeah, I actually lost the mirror round 1, but I'm bad. I've never played the mirror before, so I definitely boarded incorrect going against it. I basically got fatigued and then had to take a whole bunch of damage to try to like not get fatigued, but then I died. But I think theoretically the reds help way more in the mirror because anything you can basically snipe anything that's 3 or less very, very easily with the red swells, the golden tipples, etc. And then keep going. And then the E-strikes can snipe the whaler from like if you put an E-strike in Arsenal, you can snipe the whaler, you can snipe the chum very easily, and then you can direct more things towards their face and not always use the allies. I think it's like a really cool really cool dance in the mirror, and I have no idea if I'm correct at all. So like I mean like it's week 1 of the format. Like we just had the format come out last weekend, watching some of the is it Bologna? Bologna. Sorry, I'm gonna piss so many people off. I'm sorry.
It's okay. He's from Vegas. Be gentle, folks.
Yeah, it's like watching some of those games is like kind of incredible. Like we're still so early into this format and really understanding what we need to be doing. And I actually can't wait for another month of like testing and knowledge to go into it. Like I fully expect Gravy to be all over the Singapore metagame, and I don't know if the best build will be known by then, but I know that like I can't wait for many articles to come out and basically read all of them of like I'm playing this version of Gravy for this reason for this metagame, and who knows, it might change all the time. Drill might change all the time. Had like Enigma changed all the time, and Necromancer is basically illusionist as well. So I expect it to change throughout the meta as well.
It definitely feels like there are a lot of flavors and approaches to this board state deck, which is not always the case. I talked to Charles Dunn about how the Enigma list, the 80 for that deck was pretty much solved by the time Pro Tour London came around. Like the difference between Pablo Pintor's list and some of the other top 8 Enigmas was maybe a couple cards.
Yeah. Yeah, the Enigma deck kind of made a full circle of being like, I don't know how many like ward stuff I should be playing, and then it went to like full ward, and then at the end it was like basically only the best ward there was in the deck, and I'm playing like not always playing pummel, but playing the most efficient attacks possible, and it's cool to see. I can't wait for the Gravy to see. Maybe the red is the worst all along, and maybe it's the best all along. Who knows? And I'm here for the ride.
Well, Peter, I have to let you get a bit of a break before the next round is paired. It is great to see you win a game on camera. I think the difference might have been the trash talk, my friend.
I didn't trash talk before this
one.
Good dog. My opponent did. Oh. And he lost. He said, I just won this matchup last round. It felt really good for me. I can't wait to play on camera. And I'm like, I understand. I've been there before.
Well, good for you keeping your tongue in your mouth, Peter. I'll let you have a moment before the next round is paired. Thank you, as always, for joining us here in the booth.
My pleasure, man.
It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back with more Flesh and Blood after this. Don't go anywhere.